All right, guys, let's talk about Dana White's comments on Mike Bell's judging after last night's Contender Series fight. And everyone's sort of take on Mike Bell's judging now that this week is starting to settle down and we're starting to roll into the next week of fights. Number one, obviously a 10-8 round in the 5th round is absolutely insane. But I have to be honest with you guys, I was okay with the draw. Like, it felt like a draw coming out of it. Before we got to the judges' scorecards, I could sort of see a draw happening. And if there was going to be a 10-8 round from memory, I think it was like the 2nd or the 3rd round that to me, enough damage was done to actually warrant a 10-8. So when we called a draw, I was like, oh, like that makes sense. But when you actually see how we got to it, that is where the problems start to arise. And Mike Bell deserves to be questioned for this, guys, a lot. But the one issue that I wanted to address is so many comments and so many content creators are talking about if only we got a statement from Mike Bell or from the commission about the judging. And to me, guys, I don't think that is going to change an absolute thing. Right, so where to begin with this? Okay, firstly, last night after Dana White's press conference, he was talking about how the commission were actually going to be having a seminar on what a 10-8 was, which I think is very, very fair. Like, they obviously need to sit the guys down with the judges, with the scorers, sit them down and once again, just like run them through the rules and remind them, because it is a big deal. Like, Valentina Shevchenko would have been the champion, the re-crowned champion, if they had judged it properly in a damn close razor-thin fight. And if Valentina Shevchenko was the champion, half the community would be screaming robbery, because when you look at the way the fans scored it on verdict, when you look at the way the MMA media has scored it, this really does seem to be split down the middle pretty clean as like a 50-50 fight. Like, half the people think Shevchenko won, half the people think Grasso won, and there's like a small percentage in the middle that think it was a draw. It's a damn hard fight to call. So if we did end up with a winner, no one would be happy anyway. Well, half the people would be unhappy anyway. Guys, leave it down in the comments. Who do you think won that fight? And one of the questions that Dana was asked yesterday is, would you like to hear from the commission? And a lot of people have been talking about this issue about whether or not Mike Bell should come out, or whether or not the judges should come out and face the media after they've made decisions like this. And I don't think it would make any difference at all. Dana said he wouldn't want the judges to come out and face the media either. And guys, here's the thing. That's very short and strict. All right, here's the thing, you guys. Like, here's the thing, right? If the judges had to come out and actually make a statement after they did something like this, it would be like the sort of statement a politician gives, you know what I mean? Like, it would just be a sort of nothing answer. Like, referees and umpires in other sports, they have to like come out and give statements. And the answers that they give, the statements that they give are just non-answers, non-statements. They're very like, they're never straight with people. Mike Bell could have come out and said, oh, from the angle that I saw it, it looked like it was a finishing sequence. He would say, through my interpretation of the rule set, Grasso was ground and pounding Valentina Shevchenko, and by his reading, that does warrant a 10-8 round. It would just be this opinion that he would give, and the rest of the MMA community, instead of us talking about how we wish there would just be a statement, the MMA community would just be talking about how bullshit that statement was. I mean, how many times has the press asked Dana something and Dana has just gone, what's that? I can't hear you, or given some non-answer like, we don't make fights the night of the fight unless it's Israel Adesanya or Colby Covington going for the title next. Like, Dana White just has these lines that he uses, and people from all organizations just have these lines that they use. Like, politicians have these lines that they use. The media ask them a yes or no question, and they give this statement that relates nothing to it. Coaches, after a team has a really bad loss, they have to come out and give a statement to the media, and all they say is, "Oh, we'll learn from this next time." Like, imagine if Mike Bell just came out and said, "From my view, it looked like Grasso was in a finishing sequence, and perhaps you don't agree with the 10-8, but we'll take this and we'll learn from it next time." That's just a non-answer. Like, he's still not going to face any punishment. All that's going to happen is what's happening now. The commission are going to call all the judges together and they're going to have another seminar on the proper way to score rounds. Nothing would change. So this narrative of we need to get these judges out who make these bad decisions to sit and face a media scrum and answer for what they've done, it just wouldn't be satisfying at the end of the day, because we have so many people from so many organizations that have to sit down and face the media, and they give us unsatisfying answers all the time. So next time this happens, and it will happen next time, guys, what do you think is the right way to deal with a judge that gets it wrong? I don't think the right way to deal with it is to sit and call for a media scrum. I think the right way to deal with it is when you have a judge that gets it so clearly wrong, they should face a 6-month to a 12-month suspension where they're off judging regional fights. They have to go back and judge regional scorecards. Send them off to the PFL where the outcomes don't matter. Send them off to Bellator where the outcomes do not matter. Get them out of the UFC and make them go and judge fights in another organization where the stakes are not as high, probably in the regional. Like, give Mike Bell's number to Masvidal and just have him do, what is it, iconic bare knuckle MMA? Like, there you go, Masvidal. There's your judge for the next 12 months. Give them a pay cut, and they deserve this sort of punishment because Shevchenko, because of his bad call, now is no longer a UFC champion. And look at the sponsorship she'll lose. If she was getting any pay-per-view points as a dominant champion, that is all gone. I'm sure her contract will change no matter what. Her show money and her fight win money are going to change because she is no longer a champion. Like, Mike Bell has just cost Shevchenko a decent chunk of her salary until she gets that title back, if she ever does get that title back. So I think when a judge makes a bad call like this, that is so obviously a bad call, the only way to handle it is to give them a pay cut and send them off to the regional scene for 12 months and bring up someone from the regional scene, bring up someone who has a good record with judging, who doesn't get to do a lot of high level UFC events, and put them there instead. Sitting down, facing the media, have us lose our shit at a judge for an entire week isn't going to help anything. The only way it's going to help anything is if these guys actually suffer the consequences for the bad decisions they're making. And that might sound harsh, but they have to suffer the consequences for the bad decisions they make because the fighters are suffering the consequence for the bad decisions that they make. It's not the fighters' fault. Like, I rag on the fighters a lot for not trying hard enough, but when they do, there are fighters that do try very, very hard to win and put on a good show for us. And I equally congratulate them as much as possible, and I want them to do well. I want them to get paid well. I want pay-per-view points. I want fans. I want people tuning into their seminars. I want them to do well. And when a judge stuffs up their decision, it stuffs up that fighter's career. So the judge needs to take that into their own career and have their career suffer for it. And then maybe the judges will pay attention and their minds won't slip away in the last round of a 25-minute title fight. Or of course, there is the entire other conversation of how we actually judge an MMA fight. This sort of reading of the rules where you sort of pick and choose what does the most damage and you leave it to the judge's discretion. Is that a bit of an outdated way of judging MMA fights? Should it be a very strict point system, or would that lead to more fighters like Israel Adesanya who are just point scoring all the time? Like, if a jab was worth 1 point, a kick was worth 1 point, a submission attempt was worth 5 points, a knockdown was worth 5 points, stuffing a takedown was worth a point. If we had a system like that, would that just encourage point scoring, or would it make it a lot easier to judge if we could bring in some sort of tracked AI system that could judge these fights as it was happening on a point scoring system? MMA is an evolving sport. It's a young sport, really. I mean, look at the history that all these other sports have, and they still update and tweak the rules every single year. MMA, you know, the UFC, it's celebrating its 30th year. It's still a young sport, so there are still tweaks and changes that need to be made. And what we saw on the weekend is a perfect example of what can go wrong and how much it can cost a fighter. We don't take these things seriously, guys. We leave things to a judge's discretion. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments. Should Mike Bell suffer any consequences? What should they be? And do you feel the judging of MMA needs a rework, or do you think that we're in a good place at the moment? If you guys have been enjoying these videos, maybe consider clicking subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.